Throughout my life, I've realized that most problems come from not knowing what you want in life. And if you're oblivious to your own desires and pursuits, it's very easy for you to fall into the trap of seeking validation from other people. And when that happens, you stop trying to fulfill your own soul and rather try to feed your own ego through displays of performance. For example, the people who try to show other people how happy they are by posting pictures of every single posh, lavish, and materialistic activity they've done, right? I don't know about your country, but in Korea, the most cliched ones that come to mind are people posting pictures of fine dining, omakase, luxury apartments, golf, 5-star hotels, Porsche, Louis Vuitton and Hermes, those types of things. And maybe there are people that genuinely enjoy those things, but it's funny how every rich Korean has exactly the same taste in food, lifestyle, and fashion. But the point I want to make is, if you don't want to end up as one of those depressed rich kids or enfant riche déprimé, you have to figure out what you want in life. And figuring out what you want requires a high degree of self-reliance. Because in order to understand yourself and identify your own values, you need a certain level of introspection. And introspection can only come from solitude, right? And I think this is why most people struggle to understand what they truly value, because most people cannot bear the silence. Because being in silence goes against our nature, especially if you grew up in a heavily community-oriented culture. And if you're a member of a community, it's very hard to go against its values because every human has the fear of exclusion, right? So oftentimes we end up saying yes to conformity, yes to obedience, yes to collective ideology, which are eating yourself up from inside. So every now and then, to fight this urge, we need someone to remind us that we are strong enough to be independent, that we can make our own choices in life, that fear is the enemy of the mind. So we often look to philosophers, artists, iconoclasts, or outcasts who often motivate us to get rid of this unnecessary fear and rely on ourselves. And I remember this one speech from the actor Matthew McConaughey. I believe it was from the Oscars. So when he was 15 years old, he was asked a question. So someone asked him a question. Who's your hero? And he couldn't come up with an answer, just like anyone else who gets asked the same question, right? But so after some time to think about it, Matthew responded, "My hero is me in 10 years. And after 10 years, my hero will be me in 20 years." I heard this speech a while back. I think I was in my 20s. And this really solidified my perception of relying on myself. Because, when I was young, I really didn't have anyone to look up to. No one that I could call a role model other than a couple characters in books and movies that weren't real. And when there's nothing to aspire to, you lose the motivation to continue. But once you set a standard and that standard is yourself in 10 years, there's really no better person or reason to continue living life and better yourself constantly. So I hope you guys got as much out of it as I did. And that's it. See you guys.